Oh, oh my glob. Is this a game I can actually record? Yeah, I realized that I could actually just use the Xbox game bar to record video instead of having to use OBS that eats up all my freaking processing power or whatever. But anyways, this video isn't about that. This video is about a neat little gem of a game called My Friend Pedro. My Friend Pedro is a sorta side-scrolling shooter focused on making you feel like a little epic gamer with the way you parkour around, doing flips and skateboard tricks, all while killing some bad guys, whilst equipped guns akimbo. To me, it kinda fits into a certain archetype of game alongside other titles like Hotline Miami, Katana Zero, and Ghost Runner. Personally, this run and gun style of game is up there as one of my favorite genres. But after... Oh geez, it's been 5 years? Dang, it's been a while. But after 5 years since the game's release, does it still hold up? How does My Friend Pedro feel? Also, spoilers by the way, if you care about that sort of thing. My Friend Pedro starts off with the player character having just woken up with no idea of what's going on. But fret not, since we have our nice bud Pedro, the floating, affable banana. He's here to keep us company and provide a little bit of guidance. Apparently, we're in the captivity of a criminal named Mitch the Butcher, who's potentially looking to serve us up like Kirby. Pedro suggests to us that we're gonna have to pop a cap in him and his goons, and because he's the only person that we've socially interacted with, we oblige. That's pretty much all the setup the intro gives us, but to be honest, that's more than enough for a game like this. The central crux of the game isn't really focused on the story. It's all about the gameplay, baby, and let's talk about it. My Friend Pedro, much like how I described earlier, is all about running and gunning. You do a flip and kill the guy. And this core gameplay loop is pretty darn satisfying. It's supplemented by all the movement mechanics. You can jump around, wall jump, do some flips, and roll. You can also do this sorta dodge twirl to avoid incoming bullets, but I don't think I use this as often as I should since it makes you highly inaccurate, because you're literally spinning around. My thought process is, well, if I just kill the guys, then I won't even have to dodge in the first place. My plan is foolproof. And I just die. But regardless of my ineptitude, the game also has a slow motion mechanic called focus. Similar to Max Payne and surprisingly several other games in the run and gun genre. Guess it just comes with the territory or something. Anyways, I don't know if I'm reading into this too deep, but I sort of feel like the slow-mo is another way to choose how you want to play, besides the difficulty options. I mean, if you just want to run through the levels as fast as you can, then you could just opt not to use the slow-mo, since while it may help, if you're skilled, then it's not really required. Or if you just want to feel like a god, just hitting a ballerina spin on your foes, taking out everybody stylishly and methodically, then you're welcome to. It's neat in a way. Overall, the core gameplay is solid. It's simple, but in the best way possible. It's just plain good fun to be jumping around shooting some dudes. Epically, of course. You really feel the exaggerated swagger of a Hispanic banana. Plus, the game adds several gimmicks level to level to add some variety. You've got zip lines to glide down, metal sheets and pans that ricochet your bullets, skateboards to ollie off of and kick into some dude's face. It's also got
trees, and more trees.
The game has a little bit of enemy variety going on here. There's masked high-tech dudes who take more bullets and can't be headshot. There's these LARPer knight dudes who take way more bullets and also can't be headshot. And these automatic turrets that got a big glowy eyeball weakness thing going on. But for the most part, you're squaring off against normal goons who go down after a couple of shotties to the bodies, a swift kick to the anywhere, or a crisp little headshot. There's also a couple of boss fights that I'll talk a little bit more about when we get back to the story. The game is also pretty replayable in my opinion, and the factor that contributes the most to that is the score system. Again, much like other run and gun titles, this game keeps track of how well you did via a scoring system. You get extra points for chaining kills together in a combo, not dying, and for playing at higher difficulties. It's always nice to have a score tracker in games like this to be able to see how much you improve from run to run. Also, during these end level screens, Pedro gives a quirky little expression. He make the face. Another aspect of the game that I wanted to talk about for a bit is the presentation. The visual aspect of the game, it's... how do I say? It's not really bad, but it's just kind of bland, I guess. I mean, a lot of the environments don't have a lot of color. They're mostly just gray, brown, these darker kind of unappealing and sort of boring colors. The Pedro's World levels are the exception to this, and spice it up with these more pleasant oranges and greens, and are the most standout visually. I'm not saying that the game needs to be so full of color that your retinas burn, but I do wish it was a little bit more visually interesting. I will say, I somewhat understand the choice since many of the enemies dress in more bright colors, which helps to draw attention to them with the contrast, but I feel like there must have been some way to have both them and the backdrops be more colorful. There's a bit of shading around the player that has a sort of vaporwave thing going on, and honestly I feel like the game should have leaned more into this direction. Though doing that may have brought up more similarities to other games in this genre, so I don't know. I will say though, I do like the real life background footage used for the motorcycle boss fight. It's kinda quirky. The music for this game is also, well, just a bit bland. Don't get me wrong, the soundtrack has its moments. And it absolutely fits the game's vibes. It's a lot of techno music. It's got a lot of beeps and boops that you can bop your head to, and it does help to get you hyped. But on its own, it isn't really my thing. And to me at least, a lot of the soundtrack sounds kinda samey and blends together. Like, okay, I don't know if this will make sense, but if I heard the OST at a party, I wouldn't complain. But I don't think I would add any individual song to my playlist. Anyways, let's go back to talking about the story. Throughout the game, there will be 3 main boss fights that will make you face off against, ironically enough, the only other 3 named characters in the game. Each provides their own twist on gameplay. You have the motorcycle chase that I mentioned before. There's a part where you get chased by some sort of plane thing and then you fall off a building. And then there's the classic copycat boss, which essentially is just an enemy with your moveset. Just like the blue blur and his nemesis. Faker. Once you defeat this boss, it's revealed that the player character was actually related to all of them. Mitch the Butcher was your dad, Denny was your brother, and Ophelia was your sister. What a twist! Everyone in the family was a part of some sort of criminal enterprise that we didn't really want to be a part of, nor did our character want to let his family continue with all their chicanery. So, in a dramatic turn of events, he enlisted Pedro to give him a little lobotomy, and then help him kill all of his family. The final part of the deal being that he would also put us out of our misery as well. Yes, our friend Pedro, he's trying to kill us. I just can't believe it. The story is potentially interesting, but that's the thing. It could be interesting, but it really isn't. It's just down to the fact that the game doesn't really place an emphasis on it. There's not much development put into it because most of the dialogue is just Pedro quipping at you. But this isn't much of a downside. Like I said, most of the focus went to making the gameplay enjoyable. Shifting on over to the boss fights themselves, they're honestly, well, they're just okay. Of course, there have been a few cool boss fights in games like these that do a lot to either incorporate the core gameplay into the fight or provide such a substantial change that they are very awesome and memorable. But the ones here are just a bit bog standard in a way that I can't really describe. I guess they're just either a bit bullet spongy or they're just a disguised goon gauntlet. Like, for example, this robot mech that I forgot to mention earlier. He's really simple. You just shoot the glowing eyeball on his face and the glowing fuel tank on his back. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I wish they were more complex. Like, maybe if the copycat boss took place in a parkour level that you had to race through while shooting at each other or something. I know that the jet boss does something a bit similar, but it's just that that one feels less like a boss and more like a level gimmick. And the thing is that while My Friend Pedro thrives on its simplicity, the same really can't be said for its bosses. In fact, I think that maybe since the gameplay was made simple, the bosses should have been more complex in order to compensate for that. Though I should probably mention that like 99% of this game was made by just one dude, Victor Ogren, aka Dead Toast Entertainment. I think the only thing that he got help with was all the music, which is incredibly impressive to me. Kudos, man. Besides, the boss fights aren't really a huge part of the game anyways, so I personally feel like it's not much of a biggie, despite how much I talked about them in this last segment. Anyways, to wrap up the remaining story, Pedro literally inserts himself into our brain and we have to take on our dear friend in the last boss fight. Unfortunately, again, there's nothing too interesting going on here. Just jump and shoot. Though I do really like the fact that in the second phase, Pedro pulls out his own dualies. The game ends off with Pedro defeated. Our character finally takes off his mask and...
What the blankety bleep is going on here?
I interpret this ending as Pedro taking control of your body or something. Or maybe it's just a really cool Roblox reference. And yeah, that's the end of My Friend Pedro. Something that I wasn't really able to fit anywhere else into this review was all the nifty little game modifiers. There's a bunch of things here, from gameplay changes like changing your running speed or the size of your character, to the absolutely iconic big head mode. I miss when lots of games had features like these. They were always really fun to mess around with. Also, last few things I wanted to talk about. There's a friggin' mobile game for My Friend Pedro, which is kinda weird to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's just My Friend Pedro with iPhone controls, which honestly works really well. It's not really a sequel, I don't think. The plot of the game revolves around helping Pedro find his kidnapped family, and I'm gonna be honest, I haven't finished this game yet, so I don't know where it goes. But it is basically just more My Friend Pedro, except everyone's been hit with the chibi raid. It still has good gameplay, and similar music to the original for all you techno heads out there. But yeah, it's just a fun, simple mobile game. Definitely better than most of them on the market too, so I recommend you give this one a shot. Also, there's the original My Friend Pedro Flash game, but I didn't go in deep enough to play this one, sorry. It basically just seems like a prototype for the Steam game though, and it also lacks interesting visuals, so I don't think I missed too much. I don't mean to hate though, it was one of Victor's early works, and besides, it laid the groundwork for the later game, and that's a-okay in my book. Okay. Sorry for that tangent there. Time to finish up my thoughts on the big game. Do I like My Friend Pedro? Well, I have this off-brand jacket from like Redbubble or something, so I don't know. You tell me, idiot. My Friend Pedro is a delightfully enjoyable experience. It's not all that deep in any sense, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be deep. As a matter of fact, that's what helps its gameplay be as fun as it is. The other parts of the game, story, visuals, music, etc. are all just sorta decent, but in actuality, they don't really hamper the experience at all, since they're not really the main focus. It's all in the running and gunning, baby. So, yeah. It's a good game, and it definitely earns its spot to be amongst Devolver Digital's catalog, and I highly recommend you give it a shot. But a probably important question for people who've played the other games I've mentioned is, how does it compare to them? I don't know. What are you looking at me for?